Hi everyone, thanks for coming and showing some interest in how our websites are built. I'm Paul Godfrey, I'm the head of creative. This is Alex.
Hello, yeah, I'm Alex Martin and I'm the Director of Studio, so I look after the online technical team.
So I'm going to first of all introduce you to what we're doing on our website to make sure we're working across multiple devices. I'm going to start off by hopefully bringing to life a few little stats around usage of computers nowadays, and the fact that it isn't actually all about computers anymore. It's nearly all about phones and tablets and all sorts of other things we don't really even know about yet. So 90% of people are moving between devices, whether it's a smartphone, a PC or a tablet, to accomplish a goal. So that means people are not just sitting down to buy something on one device and finishing it. They're browsing, maybe on the train, they're perhaps on their work computer at lunchtime or whatever, and then maybe when they get home they complete their purchase. So actually people completing their goals in a bit of a journey across devices. And actually 86% of people use more than one device at the same time. So I think a classic one is sitting watching the telly. Most people have something on their lap that they're tapping away on, either Facebook or texting, or they're finding more information out about the show they're watching. Everything's sort of multi-device now. And actually the number of devices that people own is going up drastically. The stat you see here is from the end of 2013, so it'll be even higher now. And that's that people have increased from 2.3 devices each up to 3, which is a staggering amount when you think how many people there are, and each person is going to have roughly 3 devices. That means there is an enormous growth in the number of devices that people are using. And people absolutely love them. I mean, we all know it, we work in the industry, but people all over the country are hooked. That's absolutely the case. 80% of people won't even go out without it. You know, I mean, we all know that. We know that if you go out without your phone, it's like being naked for the day. It's horrible. But people really do feel like that. 3/4 of British smartphone users go online every day. So it's not even a thing that they have it and they don't use it. Every day, people are relying on their phones. Tablet usage has tripled in the last year, so it's not just about phones anymore. Now people are actually finding iPads or Android tablets are their main device that they want to engage with. And people use them everywhere. They use them on the go, they use them at work. For retail, it's really important that people are using them in shops, so people are not looking in the shop to see what they want to buy. They're actually comparing prices online and saying, I don't know, actually, if this is a good price or not, or is this the feature set I want? So retailers really have to have this in mind, and we do too. These stats were helped put together for us by Google, and in our particular industry, we're finding that 75% of customers prefer a site that is friendly to mobile. So I'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but rather than just using any old website on mobile, companies can make their website especially good on mobile, and 75% of people have already said they prefer a site that is optimized or set up especially for mobile. And 61%, this is the bit we really need to take notice of, 61% of customers who visit an unfriendly mobile site, so something where they have to pinch and zoom a lot and it doesn't feel easy, they're actually likely to go to a competitor. So we have to be very careful that we don't fall into that. And sites that work well across devices keep customers happy. We know this. So how do we achieve what I've just talked about? How do we achieve getting, our experience really great on mobile devices? I'm going to talk about what most of the industry are doing, and then Alex is going to talk a bit more about what we're doing. So in the industry, and by the industry I really mean the internet industry, not our particular industry, but in the industry of having websites as a whole, there are 3 common ways to make mobile-friendly websites. But none of them are perfect, and absolutely all of them cost a lot more money and are going to impact your production. They make making the website and maintaining it harder and slower. All of them require upfront investment in design and development, and actually they all require quite specialist and subsequently expensive people. So there's lots of people who've grown up with the internet, there's quite a lot of people who know how to do stuff for the internet, but doing really great work on mobile it's not as easy, and there's not as many people out there who are good at it. Oh, hello, with that. So there are 3 ways to build, common ways to build a website on what we call a single domain, and that really means talktalk.co.uk. So the first one is a separate mobile website. So that means you literally make a completely separate website that is made exactly as you want it to be for mobile. So it can be nice and thin, it can have the right pictures on it that you want. Everything is made for that mobile website. And actually, as you can see, this diagram shows at the top the server, and then it shows 2 routes of traffic going up and down, because that actually is showing that everything's doubled. So there's double sort of setup and connection. Connectivity is literally double, and the website has to be doubled. There is another technique called responsive web design. This is where you have one website, so you see there's just one arrow going up and down from the server, but that one website quite cleverly adapts itself dependent on what device it finds itself on. So if it sees that it's on a tablet, it says, okay, I'll lay myself out like this. If it sees it's on a smartphone, it will arrange itself quite slim, and it will, you know, tailor itself, which is quite good, but it does have quite a few drawbacks, which I'll get onto. And then there's the third option, dynamic serving. So this is where there is really no website at all. Actually, there's just a collection of data on the server, and we look at who you are and what device you've got, and we pull all the data together into a package that suits your device, and we give it to you bespoke. So that's like a sort of a dynamic custom site for every single device. So they're the 3 common ways. They're what you'll have all used day in, day out on your smartphones. We'll get to the end. We'll have some questions at the end. I'm quite happy to go in for. So you don't understand the difference between the second and the third? Okay, just quickly then, the second option is a website that is one set of code, it's one website, but it's built into it is the ability to change shape effectively. Whereas the third one, there isn't really a website, there's just data and some templates, and we pick a template, we pick the data, we pull it all together and serve your website. Alex might be able to make that sound simpler than it is.
So a responsive design is a visual thing only. You are visually changing how the thing looks, but you're not changing what the thing is itself. So it's the same content, it's the same images, etc. But it visually moves around to fit the screen that you're working with, whereas the dynamic can change the content to fit. Yeah. So rather than like one big bit of text squeezing into a long column, you might get a different bit of text that's shorter and more concise.
Okay, so I'm going to talk through that first example, a responsive mobile site. And on the screens in this picture, you'll see the EE website, because this is an example of a company who's chosen responsive design. And the benefits of this are that there's only one site to maintain. So it's actually relatively cheap. In terms of mobile websites, it's probably the lowest overhead, but it's not perfect. It's the same user journey across all devices, so you could see that as a benefit, because whatever you did on desktop is exactly the same as what you would do on mobile, and it's exactly the same on a tablet. In fact, there isn't really any option for it being any different. It's the lowest cost, and it's ideal for content-rich websites. So really a site like BBC News or something like that, where you've got lots of copy and some pictures, that's really good for this, because the copy can flow around. It doesn't really matter if a picture's slightly higher or lower on the page, as long as it's there and as long as it fits the device. But there's quite a few challenges here. One size fits all is a challenge, because actually you might want to optimize certain things on a device. For example, on a customer journey of buying something, rather than having 3 steps to buy, which all fit beautifully on a nice big screen, you might want to break that up into 10 smaller steps on a mobile. This option doesn't really allow for that. It's not fully optimized for experience or performance, so you're not really getting the best of customer experience, and you're not really getting the best of performance. So it's not necessarily the fastest. The same big image that you would have on a large website is actually scaled down and used on a mobile phone, which is quite slow. Making a page actually is quite hard, because you have to think of how it's going to look at all its different sizes. So you have 4 times the work in laying out your page and thinking, okay, we want this here and this here. How's it going to look on this device? How's it going to look on this device? And you have 4 different sizes that you work to. It can be slow, and it costs more to maintain than a single standard website. So although it's quite common, and it's relatively entry level, it's not ideal really. Then this site, Adaptive. So this was the third option that we showed earlier, and the site you can see here is Amazon's. So Amazon do this because their website is effectively an enormous database of products and a load of customer information, and they want to show the customer the right products in the right way based on the experience and the information they have. So it actually makes a lot more sense for Amazon to custom make the page per the device and the customer. So the benefits of this, that it's completely optimizable for experience and performance, because the images that are served on the devices are all tailored to that device. So all the right size, very small on a mobile, big and luxurious on an iPad or a desktop. It's very, very fast, therefore, for the user, because only the code needed to serve a mobile phone is downloaded to the mobile phone. And it's really good for optimizing a customer journey. So we all know that Amazon are one of the leaders at e-commerce, and they actually have the ability to make their journeys perfect for every single device, or as perfect as they can. Challenge is here that it's the biggest of all the efforts. It's hardest to set up, most costly. It's a large effort to maintain. The website updates are much slower and much more complex. It's the hardest to test, and testing is an enormous part of what we do in the online team. Building something is probably like an iceberg. It's just the tip. Actually testing it and making sure all of the scenarios that you've built work is quite a big deal. And it's really expensive to maintain, but it is good. And then you've got something called a dedicated mobile site, which we refer to as m., because often you'll see the URL is m.talktalk or m. in this case Vodafone. And this is where you have a completely separate website, and that website has been custom made for whatever device you want. So if you want one that's tailored for iPhone, you make a complete copy of your website tailored for iPhone, and you recognize an iPhone and you serve that, which is good because it's fully optimized for performance. It's very fast for the user. It's quite good. It has a dedicated URL for mobile, but if you had 2, it's double the effort to maintain. If you had 4 times the effort to maintain. It's a lot of effort, and it's obviously expensive. So this is really just talking about mobile websites, but there's also another area that people get a little bit confused about, is apps. So what is a mobile website and what is an app? So a mobile website is actually, as I've just been talking about, it's a normal website, but it's been tailored to work well on a particular device. Whereas an app is actually a dedicated program that the user has requested to put on their device. So it's like a program. So a bit like on a PC you'd install Microsoft Office, that would be an app, whereas a website would be just like looking at a website. So normal websites are great because they're something that you need to have. You need to be able to optimize the experience. But actually apps have their own benefits, because if you have an app, it's on somebody's device, so we know a bit more about them. It's a little bit more secure. We can save ourselves quite a lot of pain of logging them in and things like that. So really, to look at whether you'd have mobile or app, or why perhaps you'd have both, you need to consider that a mobile website is really good for people who don't visit you very often. So if they're just going to check you once in a blue moon to get some information, they're not going to download an app. It's too much effort for them. They're not going to do that. So you need to have your mobile optimized website for that. It's very good for a one-off purchase. So if you're going to buy something but you're not a repeat customer, you'd probably just buy it through a mobile website and be very happy. And one mobile site is quite clever. It can serve many, many, many different device types. And Alex will explain, there are many different types of mobile device out there. Apps, being dedicated, are great for regular visitors. So if you're a regular user of Amazon or something, you probably would find that downloading the app gives you a better buying experience, because you can do one-click buy, you don't have to log in, it remembers everything about you, it's secure. eBay is a really good example of a good app where, it saves you so much time. You can just, see everything you want, you can track it, it will send instant messages to you, it can push notify to you. You can't do that with a mobile website. So there's a bit of a difference between the two, but you do actually need both. The problem with an app is every single app is a bespoke piece of work. So an iPhone app is completely different, really, to an Android app. And actually, Android isn't just Android. There's different flavors of Android as well. And Android on a tablet is different to Android on a phone. And iPad is different to an iPhone. So suddenly you realize in supporting apps, maybe there's 10 different versions of it you've got to maintain. And this is TalkTalk. We don't have endless people sitting around waiting to do this. So we have to be efficient. And that isn't very efficient. But there is something that is efficient, which is a hybrid mobile app, or sometimes known as a web app. Now, this is also a native application that a customer installs. So it's got a lot of the benefits of a full app. But actually, it's based on a lot of the pages that you've built in your mobile website. So it's kind of the two brought together, and it gives many benefits without all the big overheads, because you can publish your app out to many different devices all in one go with one source code. So it's quite efficient, and really it's the right way for the future. I think the future of bespoke apps is a bit challenging for lots of companies, so we're not the only company who would consider this quite attractive. And actually, I don't know if anyone here is a TalkTalk customer. Hopefully you are, and if you are, hopefully you've got the My TalkTalk app. If not, download it. But that app is actually a hybrid mobile app. It's a web app. So it's an example of how we've used this approach to really make a benefit for our business. Hopefully that gives you an overview of what the technology is. Alex is now going to tell you actually what we've done at TalkTalk and why we've made some of the decisions that we have. Right. So we need to just switch over.
Well, not yet. So first of all, what's our challenge? Now, the challenge is primarily this. I can't think of any other manufacturing industry other than software where the thing that you make can be experienced and consumed in so many different ways. And I mean, with normal software like games and applications, actually it's not that bad. You've only got, say, a couple of operating systems to worry about, Mac and Windows or a PlayStation or whatever. But people have been trained to understand that this software will only work on a certain setup. Like, it's a Windows application, it's only going to work on Windows. But with the web, it's the worst of everything, because we all expect whatever device we've got, however old it is, that everything we find on the web is going to work on it. And it should do. I mean, that should be where we get to. Now, there's been a tech war running in mobile for quite a while now, which has it's driven fantastic development of devices. We have now got tiny little devices with incredible power that we can carry around with ourselves. That's brilliant. The bad thing is that obviously all these companies are constantly fighting each other to bring out the next new thing, the greatest innovation. So they are constantly bringing out new things that do things differently, things that are better, new features. And we've obviously got to make sure that everything we do works with all these old devices and all these new devices. And they're all very different from each other, and they all interpret what we do in a different way. So here, this is, right, what is your device? I mean, the thing that you're accessing the web on, it's not just an iPhone or an iPad. It's actually a stack of different things, each of which can interpret and change the way that that device displays, consumes the experience that we've put together. So, for instance, your device is an operating system. Now, previously that used to be sort of Mac and Windows. That was great. We've got loads now. I mean, there's 10 major operating systems that are now out there with all these mobile devices: Android, Bada, BlackBerry, Firefox, OS, iOS, etc. They all interpret and run the programs that we put up on the web slightly differently from each other. Out of those 10 major operating systems, there's at least 60 distinctly different variants. So different variants of Android are completely different from each other. You have to be able to identify that and deal with it. Running on that operating system is a browser, the thing that you interact with the web on. There's 13 major browser providers out there with over 500 plus variations of browsers. Now, I mean, if you've used, say, Internet Explorer, say on a PC, you'll say that was bad enough. Internet Explorer 6 is totally different from 7. It's totally different from 8. It's totally different from 9. The way that it renders things is different, and the code that they can understand is different. So if you write a nice interactive carousel it may run fine on Internet Explorer 9. It may not display at all on 6. It may be very janky on 8. These browsers all deal with your site differently. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's quite substantial. A thing that really doesn't help us here is that HTML5, which is the language that the mobile devices all use for rendering these web experiences, hasn't actually been released yet. All right? So we've all been using it for the last few years. We're all writing for it. The manual, the rule book for how to use HTML5 doesn't come out until a bit later on this year. So all these browser manufacturers have been interpreting how they think it should work today. And that's why you get things like, I tell the browser to put a box that's 100 pixels wide on screen and put some text in it, and some browsers give me a 120 pixel wide box, some give me a smaller box. It's all based on how they interpret how padding and margins and other things should be used, right? Now, on top of that, you've got the screen size. Now, we can't tell how big your screen is, but we can tell, say, the pixel size of the screen. And you can imagine you have a mobile phone, you turn it sideways, you know, that's two completely different screens, two completely different amounts of information you're going to be viewing. Last time I checked, we had just over 230 unique screen sizes being consumed at any one time on our websites. We can collapse this down to about 15 major size configurations. But I said that is very important for how you experience the site, the screen size you're looking at. Also very important is how far away you are from it. There's the 6-2-1 rule. You're either 6 foot away from it, it's on a TV, you're 2 foot away, it's on a computer, or you're 1 foot away or less, which is a handheld mobile device. So the distance you are from the screen has a big impact on how you use the thing. Then you've got the interface, how you are interacting with that experience. And I've got 7 primary interfaces you as a user could be using. You might be using a keyboard or just a scroll wheel on an older phone, or a pointer, which is a mouse device. It could be touch, it could be voice, gesture, or switch. Now, this, again, has a big impact. If you're using touch to control your experience, the buttons, say, need to be bigger. You can't have lots of small things together that you can click on to interact with. If it's pointer, you can go smaller. If this is to be consumed on a TV, everything has got to appear to be much bigger because you're a lot further away from it. And yeah, just to make it really tricksy, these high-definition screens are causing us big issues. A Samsung S4 Galaxy phone has exactly the same screen resolution as a 60-inch plasma TV. And we can't really tell the difference between the two, but we need to do something differently for them. So there are a number of, so if you multiply all these together, right, these are all, that huge number is the total potential amount of ways somebody could experience your site and what you do. We've got to try and make sure it's A, works on all of them, and B, is as good as possible on all of them. And it's like, okay, right, how do you do that? There's 3 main ways that the industry does this. The first and most common is you ignore it. You just build your thing and whatever. It doesn't work on a lot of devices, or it's a bit janky, but you know, that's the way you go. You can invest heavily in people. A lot of places will have separate teams building for the most common combinations of device. So, for instance, you'll have a team that puts together a Windows 8 app. You'll have a team that puts together an iPhone app, and a team that puts an Android app, and a team that does a website. Or you can just spend a vast amount of cash paying third parties to deal with some of these device types for you. None of those are really TalkTalk's way, right? We're value. We want to get as much value as we can out of what we've got. Yeah, it's that thing. All right. So why not zig while the world zags? So conventionally, the zag is we build the same thing many times using different technologies. And that's like either separate teams or, as I said, you pay third parties to sort it out for us. The zig that we're doing is we'll build versions of the same thing using the same technology. Now, this isn't actually something you've really been able to do until very recently. As the industry does converge and get a little bit better with all devices playing nicer, some technologies have evolved which are truly multi-device, right? So we don't have to use Apple's specific language for the iPads. We don't have to use a different language for Android. There are technologies based around JavaScript which are very, very common and are embedded in, you know, all of the devices. So even like smart TVs can understand JavaScript. So we want to build different versions of the same thing using the same technology. And that's the important thing here, that we want to use one programming technology or series of technologies together. Our ZAG, mobile users don't need to be able to do everything you can on a website. Now, we believe, correctly, I believe, that mobile users are frustrated when we limit what they can do. So why not give them everything? Now, this now comes down to when you are developing separate sites for different devices, generally you cut down the feature set because you don't want to be completely recreating everything you do many, many times. I hate that. Right? I think if we've done an experience for a user, that user should be able to experience that entire thing on whatever device they choose. We should not dictate how, what actually they're really interested in. So another zag, we will identify which device you have and give you a website that best matches it. Our zig is your device will ask for the content that it can handle. So this is linking into adaptive. When your servers are figuring out what that user should have, you're putting a lot of load on the servers. You're actually burning a lot of energy and power and just capacity doing that. So we'd like to switch that around and say, right, we'll put that onto the user's device. Your device will ask for what it can do rather than us trying to guess at what your device can handle. Okay? The zag, we will build a number of websites aimed at different devices. What we're doing is we'll create versions of some of the things that we do, and your device will select which ones it can work best with. So an example of this, for instance, is we create a carousel, which is a series of images that you can swipe through and get information from. Obviously, as a screen size goes down, you're going to want that to appear differently. If you've got text on those images, you're just not going to be able to read it as it's smaller. So as your screen size goes down, we'll want that carousel to change itself so that it looks different. Perhaps it just switches into a text-only mode. If you're using touch, we want nice big buttons on the side or no buttons at all, and you just swipe it across. But if your device is a pointed device, there'll be areas where you can click on, whereas if your device is a switch device, there'll be a simple switches and an accessibility thing where you can only do yes or no actions. So we want that thing to change itself to suit your device, but it's just part of a single site. So only the bits that need to change to work on your device will change. Everything else will stay as it is, common and generic for all the devices. Yeah. Our zig, how can we make our website work on a mobile device? And this is a question that most people ask themselves. And what we're asking ourselves is, okay, how can we build a fully featured mobile site that also works on a desktop? Now, back in the day, great many years ago, we used to make websites that do everything that we do now, but like with under 100K because modems were crap and you had really, really slow data transfer rates. Then it worked to like 7.5K a second. Today's websites are generally over about a megabyte in size. Now, when broadband first came out, did users suddenly get super fast websites? No, they didn't. As soon as broadband came out, we thought brilliant, and we slapped like loads of flash adverts and videos everywhere. So we actually slowed the sites down to just as slow as they were when you had a slow broadband speed. And that's what sort of technology really does for us. It allows us to be inefficient. Mobile, and when you're designing for a mobile device, you've got a lot less power, you've got a lot less data transfer, and it brings back the purity of the whole thing, the purity of, of the web when it first came out. And we know, and I'm not going to show you slides here, but there is a direct correlation between users' happiness and their propensity to buy and stay on your site and click around. There's a direct comparison for that to the speed of the site. So the faster the thing is, the happier people are, and the more they interact with you. All right. So our zig here is, actually, let's forget about trying to make our websites work on mobile devices. Let's build something that's super efficient for a mobile device that also works on the desktop and has all the full features that that desktop site can have, so that we're not cutting it down, we're not making it simple or basic, but it is super fast and efficient. And yeah, so that's what we've done. Now, is this real or is this just talk? Well, we've been trialing these technologies over a number of the recent releases we've been putting out through TalkTalk. So, for instance, the My TalkTalk, Service Center, Welcome Center, these are all examples that have been built using this zig technology, right? So we have taken spent a lot of time stitching together very specific technologies in order for us to create a single piece of code that really does work across all devices. So we can have one team working on it and building it, and every time we release a new feature, that feature can be released to all devices simultaneously. We're not having staggered releases where one team is going to take 2 months to get a new feature in because they're writing it again, or they're all developing in separate silos. So we have used this technology. It's working. Our latest releases are all based off of this. Of course, you can also ask the question, all right, fine, so you've got a technology that allows you to write a bit of code once that actually can give a customized experience for each device, and it's not, but isn't that going to make our websites worse, right? So we're going to lose something in order to gain this multi-device compatibility. And, yep, that one. And the answer is no. So very recently, we did a piece of work on the B2B Soho sales site, and we've built that using the technology that we put together for all of these mobile sites. And so all I've got here is a quick chart to show the speed of the thing. So it is just as pretty as, well, you can go. We say, oh, I think it's pretty.
Pretty's
yeah.
fine.
Just as pretty as our sort of the B2C sales site. It has exactly the same functionality, so we've not lost anything in this conversion, but it's built on the new tech set. And so the speed here, the competitor I've got in green there is a BT sales site. I've selected pages and parts of the journey that are actually very similar, because I need to prove to myself as well that this stuff works. In red is the original B2C sales site, and in blue is the new B2B Soho sales site. So you can see the first entrance, the first sort of page that you get when you go to the site is similar in speed to the more conventional website. But as soon as you start hitting those second and subsequent pages, the speed is dramatic. We're talking sort of from 100 to 20 milliseconds per page transition as you're going through the site. Yeah, so yeah, super fast. That's because we're building these websites as single-page applications. Right? And I'd love to go into great detail about exactly how we're doing, but what I'm probably going to do is put together some posts on The Wire and put it into a blog, which explains exactly how we're getting the speed that we're getting without losing any of the functionality. And then, you can have a good read through that, and we can get into discussions about it through there. But one thing we didn't think about, actually, when we were doing this, is that we are having to change the design of some of our pages slightly because people don't think it's working. If the screen was small and we're too similar in content, say at the top of the page, as you click around on the page, it's happening so fast you don't notice that the page has changed. So we've even had to consider, say, putting in a bit of a blip or a bit of a, sort of a judder in order to help people understand that, yes, something has happened, they've changed. It's actually a little bit too fast.